Hello, and today we are back with another What If movie. We will start this movie with Deku's birth. You see, when Deku was born in this timeline, his body would be horribly disfigured. His skin was so fragile, even the slightest hint of moonlight could damage it. And Deku would be missing an arm. He would need a life support ever since he came out of the womb. This is because he was born with a heavenly restriction. In turn for his physical body being nerfed the hell out, he had a really powerful quirk called Puppeteer. Deku, with his quirk, could puppeteer like puppets and a lot of other things. Like he could puppeteer a pencil. Yeah, nah. But he could do this with incredible range. So, yeah. Deku would grow up homeschooled as. Yeah, he couldn't really go to school with his chopped body. Inko, throughout the years, would grow tired of this and desire some way for Deku to be healed. So she would look through many different areas trying to find the best of doctors. But none of them were able to treat Deku. So Deku was just stuck like that. Eventually, he would make it to the middle school. And that would be the year where Inko would get into a little bit of a shady business with All for One. All for One, meeting up with Inko, would discuss that he had connections that could help her out with her son's situation. It would be revealed that All for One was talking about Overhaul. And in turn for Overhaul fixing up Deku, that Deku would have to be loyal to All for One. Inko, seeing this was the only plausible option to give her boy somewhat of a normal life, she would easily accept this deal with All for One. So, Overhaul would come in the next day, and using his quirk, would reassemble Deku's body into a proper, like a normal human body, with his quirk intact. So, with this new condition that Deku had to be loyal to All for One would explain his plans to Deku, saying that he was going to be a spy for UA High because, yeah, villain evil. And he needed to see what was up with online since he was a teacher at UA. So Deku would be a spy, and he would meet up with the other league of villains, which was also working with All for One. Shigaraki would be severely jealous of Deku since his master had someone more importance of him. So Deku would start his spying on UA by going into the entrance exams. He would easily pass the mental exam, yeah, the test portions, since he's like smart. And then when up come the physical exams, he would be making his way forward when he would be stopped by a blue-haired boy yapping about how he was being mad disrespectful trying to interrupt some young girl, but Deku did not give a she, so he flat out ignored him. Deku would start off the exams by summoning his Mekamarus, and they would be able to do somewhat damage to the various types of robots. That's when Deku got an idea. What if he could puppeteer the robots? And Deku would be able to easily puppeteer the robots, helping Deku out in eliminating the other robots. Deku would gain massive points by doing this. Eventually, when the exam almost came to over, Deku would see the 0 pointer about to crush an innocent girl. Deku, still having a little bit of a heroics, would decide to save said girl from the 0 pointer. That's when he would puppeteer the 0 pointer easily. The 0 pointer would stop mid step and turn around. The teachers would be in shock as they didn't know that his quirk was that powerful to control a robot of that stature and that size. They were thinking that this Izuku Midoriya had potential to be a hero. So as Izuku, yeah, as Deku waited for his letter, All for One would reassure Deku that uh, that he was gonna get in, and his plans for Hidden Spine UA were going to be very, yeah, they were going to go fluently. They're going to go smoothly. And as all for one expected, Deku was accepted into UA High. Their first day would start with a quirk exam. Deku, getting number one in the quirk exams, would go first, since when he would go up and toss the ball. Everybody would be expecting some crazy numbers, but it would only be like 30 meters. They'd all be in shock since the person who scored number one in the robot test, yeah, in the entrance exams, only got 30 meters. What like? What was happening? Deku would explain that his quirk was fit for the entrance exams and did not quite so here. And that's when he would continue forward with the remaining test, just getting mediocre scores, as Deku didn't really have much use for public tier in this exam. So he would be like 8th place of the entire class, and we would continue forward with hero versus villains. Deku would draw lots, getting his teammate, which would be Uraraka. They'd be facing Ida and Bakugo. In this timeline, Bakugo would not really know Deku, since Inko would had be moving around looking for doctors to fix her boy up. So this would be their first introductions. The fight would begin, and Deku would release his Mekamarus out there. Bakugo would decide that he would need to make his way forward, confronting the enemy team first. As Bakugo would make his way down, he would find the various Mekamarus that were approaching the bomb. He would have a little bit of a hard time with the massive numbers of them, but he would eventually destroy most of them. That's when he would confront Deku. Deku, being more of a ranged fighter, wouldn't really have an answer to Bakugo. But Uraraka was still there. So Deku would assemble a Mekamaru that was hollow from the inside, and Uraraka would get into the Mekamaru. It could rushing around, blending into the other Mekamaru dolls or puppets. Bakugo wouldn't know which one held Uraraka. It only took one touch for Uraraka to throw off Bakugo, as her quirk was zero gravity. So the various Mekamarus would swarm around Bakugo again. Bakugo, knowing that one of them held a real human, he would not want to go full throttle, since he's a little less of um he's a little kinder in this timeline. So as the Mekamarus would swarm up on Bakugo, eventually one of the Mekamaru hands would detach, revealing Uraraka. Uraraka would touch Bakugo, affecting him with her zero gravity. Bakugo would frantically try to restabilize himself, but it was kind of pointless. That's when the Mekamarus would wrap around a white band around Bakugo's leg. Bakugo has been eliminated. The Mekamarus and Uraraka would make their way up to the bomb room with Ida. Eventually, they would make their way there. Ida seen the mass swarm of Mekamarus with Uraraka. He would try blitzing all the Mekamarus, and he would successfully deal with a few of them. The remaining of them would swarm on Ida, managing to slow down his options. Yeah, slow down his speed, and Ida would be left with zero options. So Uraraka would easily touch the bomb, winning the heroes versus villains exams. So we would continue forward to the USJ. The USJ would start with a bus ride. They would discuss who's the most powerful in the class. Most of them would say that it would either be Bakugo or Todoroki. And they didn't really see Deku in that spot, because what was he going to do if he just got up close and personal with Deku? He was more of a ranged and technical fighter. Anyway, they would finally arrive at the USJ, where the black hole teacher, whatever her name was, they continued their yap session about how quirks are dangerous and you need to be safe with them. That's when Kuragiri, if I'm right, the portal guy, he would make his move, teleporting the remaining students across the entire USJ. He would teleport Deku up with the villains. And Deku would be in a specially made Mechamaru that was concealing his identity. These were different from the other Mechamarus. Deku would also have some spare Mechamarus scattered around in different locations with his classmates, where they would help out a bit, not to be seen too suspicious. This is when Aizawa, seeing that the villains had arrived, would confront the upcoming army of villains. He would easily be able to overpower them with his erasure quirk. That's when he would be surprised. There were many villains that were in a hardened armor like substance. These were just other Mekamarus. Aizawa wouldn't really connect the dots. But you would see the leader of these said villain Mekamarus. He would erase their said quirk. Suddenly, all of the armored, all the Mekamarus would be flatlined, as Deku could not use his quirk in said moment. Aizawa, realizing whoever this was must have had a similar quirk to Deku, as he still wouldn't think Deku would be up with the villains. Said because he wouldn't think that yet. Seeing this, the other villains at the bottom would start taking on Aizawa even more, since they all had their quirks back. Eventually, Aizawa would be able to deal with most of them. Shigaraki, seeing this, would grow angry, deciding he was gonna die. He would with he would call out the Nomu, a huge bird-like creature. The Nomu would easily up, hop over to Aizawa, overpowering him. Even with the Nomu's course erase, he was still overpowering Aizawa. That's when Deku would hollow out another Mechamaru, and he would put Shigaraki inside. As Shigaraki would go around decaying many people, since nobody was really expecting to get one tap by and yeah, by a Mechamaru. They would easily manage to take out most of the people there at the USJ. This would be in other horror. But then backup would arrive, being many various different heroes. With the kins of All Might, the number one hero would arrive. He would easily take down most of the villains, eventually seeing the Nomu. He would go in a 1v1 with the Nomu. The Nomu would stand more of a fight with All Might, as All Might would be evenly matched for a mere moment. And they would continue scrapping as Shigaraki would continue decaying more and more of the backup heroes. Eventually, Shigaraki would be cornered by various heroes who had discovered one of the Mechamaru's was actually killing people. So they were managed to target that Mechamaru, realizing that Deku was nowhere in sight, as the various students had now regrouped, with the only one missing, which would be Deku. They would come to the conclusion that these Mechamarus, they were definitely Dekus. We're thinking that they already had a traitor. The various students would be shocked, thinking that how could Deku be a traitor? What? That was crazy. But the stronger of the students would decide they needed to step up. Watching some of the weaker ones die, they felt infuriated. So they would make their way forward, out, deciding to back up All Might. And eventually, the Nomu would be sent flying out of the USJ with All Might. Because All Might did a barrage of punches and he got blasted away. Shigaraki seeing this would be very angry. And the other heroes would close in, trying to um, make the villains retreat. And this would be very pointless, as all the other Mechamaru's would come forward and 1v1 with the heroes. Yeah, they would overpower them because robots technology. Eventually, they would take down some heroes. That's when a cruel thought would come upon Deku's mind. He would puppeteer the dead corpses of the heroes, students, and villains that has unfortunately died. And the students would be mortified seeing their dead classmates attack them. And this would be truly sickening. Eventually, Portal Guy Kurishiri, he would be looking out forward for the Nomu, trying to reintroduce it into the battle after All Might managed to send it away. So their escape was temporarily lost. Eventually, Kurashiri would free find the Nobu, and he would teleport it back. With the Nobu back in the fight, things would be a little cooked, as the villains would make their way around all the heroes, and they would be overpowered. They would be defeated. And then the villains would make their way back to the headquarters, along with Deku. All for One would be surprised that this first waves of attack, actually managed to bypass the heroes. And it was all thanks to Deku with his Mekamarus and the clever disguise. So they would continue forward, plotting multiple various plans on how to finish off the remaining heroes. Back at the hero side, they would be recovering after they got and lost multiple heroes in said fight, including Aizawa, Black Old Teacher, Cementos. Yeah, he got cooked. Let's say, yeah, those other students. Like, let's say Mindeta got slimed out. Invisible Girl got slimed out. Let's say Tail Guy, he got slimed out too. So they were, and yet eventually the kids' parents would be not so happy that their children, died at their school. So UA would be in investigations. Eventually, UA would be shut down as they allowed multiple students to die, and the heroes, yeah, they died too. So, with the next generations of heroes being slimed out of UA, they would have to find various other hero schools. But the League of Villains were still out there, so the remaining heroes had to make their move. Eventually, All for One would make his appearance with Shigaraki and Deku. They would be destroying the city in hopes to draw out All Might and maybe some other heroes so they can finish them off. All Might, seeing that a city was being destroyed by these three, would quickly come over. Seeing this, they would begin the fighting. All Might would be scrapping with All for One, and Shigaraki would be once again would be in a armored suit that was a Mekamaru suit, since the technology was quite good for Deku's quirk to actually be useful. Deku would release his tech. Yeah, he would release a massive puppet that has been specifically built for him, so he can actually do 1v combat. So he can actually fight through himself. This would be an ultimate Mechamaru. This would be a ginormous puppet robot thing, and he would begin absolutely wiping the floor with the remaining heroes. They didn't even stand a shot against Ultimate Mechamaru. And All for One would be winning his fight with All Might. And Shigaraki would be just destroying everything. The gain every single surface, killing many civilians, and everything else. Since he awakened his quirk, since, yeah, he trained. And, yeah. And after that, we'll say we'll say that the heroes were defeated and All for One took over the world. And this was a little bit shorter of a what if, since like things would wrap up. This might be a little bit of a cooked what if. Yeah, but if you like that, yippee, yay! This. Oh, and I might do what if that could have heavenly restriction, but like Toji's heavenly restriction. If you want that, then definitely comment your what if ideas if you want to see them be made, maybe. So, with this video, will only be like 25 minutes. This, yeah, this, bye.